60s psychedelic pop was a musical revolution that was, inevitably, rather short-lived. Such a colourful, rebellious, indulgent, sparkling, anti-authoritarian exercise in musical exploration and expression was a flame that burned brightly for too short a period that saw the genre pushed further than it had ever been before, into further reaches of experimentation and depth. Sparked by the uneasy optimism of the early 1960s, born of a dissatisfied but ultimately hopeful youth, the movement began to slow to a halt at the very tail end of the 60s, and has never really been revived as fully since. After all, the genre was so singularly evocative of its time and place that, perhaps, it just couldn't be. However, one especially imaginative and talented band decided to resurrect the genre once more, playing with its cliches and values, approaching the genre with equal respect and irreverence, and ultimately crafting one of the finest albums of the genre over 20 years after that genre had been abandoned. So, let's talk about the Dukes of Stratosphear. Now, fans of this group will know that I am currently obscuring the fact that the Dukes of Stratosphear are actually a side project by the members of XTC, a cult British favourite that have continually created some of rock's most dazzling and inventive albums. But they fully commit to distinguishing themselves from their parent band by not only embodying their new collective persona as the Dukes of Stratosphear, but the form of music they intend to emulate and form. Give a Dukes of Stratosphear record to someone unfamiliar with the band and their history, and it's likely that they'd guess that this was recorded in the heyday of Psychedelia. Indeed, there are shades of the Beatles, Jefferson Airplane, the Zombies, Tomorrow, the Electric Prunes, and even early Pink Floyd on display here. But the Dukes do not merely intend to ape their influences, but fuse these elements together and expand upon them to create something that is both deeply reminiscent of the music of the 1960s and wonderfully fresh and distinct. Songwriter and guitarist Andy Partridge, when interviewed retrospectively about the group, said, "It's very difficult to pin down to it being a parody of one group, because it's not. It's more of a feeling from the time." And although threads can certainly be seen running from specific bands through to specific songs that the band penned, this love of the spirit of the era is palpable in the band's recordings. And the Dukes fully devoted themselves to replicating and expanding upon this style of music. Their releases were marketed as long-lost recordings from a 60s pop group shrouded in mystery and condemned to obscurity. And the band aimed to record using only instruments and production methods that would have been available to the bands of the 1960s. It was a few years before the connection between the Dukes of Stratosphear and XTC even became clear to the public, but this, again, served to enhance the band's passionate 60s pastiche. The Beatles, after all, had toyed with this idea before in becoming Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band on the titular 1967 album, and Paul McCartney admitted in an interview after the album's release that he wanted to take the band out on the road under the name Randy and the Rockets. Whereas the Beatles never really committed to this idea as fully as they perhaps could have done, the Dukes of Stratosphear drive it to its limits. The group's entire discography, comprising the EP 25 O'Clock and the album Sonic Sunspot, is contained within the compilation Chips from the Chocolate Fireball, and although it should feel like a loose collection of songs hastily stitched together, the unity of style and sound present here ensures that the album feels cohesive and complete. But the forays into the different spheres of psychedelia ensure that the album remains diverse and varied. The first 6 tracks of this album collect the first EP, so we'll begin by looking at that.
Each watch I'd smash apart, just adding to my power. Each watch I'd smash apart, just bringing the hour of 25 o'clock. That's when you're going.
The EP's thunderous opener, 25 O'Clock, serves as a stunning introductory track, loaded with menace and deeply reminiscent of the work of the Electric Prunes, and, in particular, the early single, I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night.
I had too much to dream last night, too much to dream. I'm not ready to face the light. I had too much to dream last night.
Bike Ride to the Moon indulges in a greater sense of whimsy and charm, an amalgamation of Pink Floyd's early singles and bright, glittering psychedelia from artists like Tomorrow and the Zombies.
Push me off to start the fun on a bike ride to the moon.
This track in particular emphasises the band's humour and spirit. They don't sound as if they're taking themselves all that seriously, but the song glides along with such confidence and such enthusiasm that it can't help but seem endearing. By contrast, Your Gold Dress is a subtly sinister number, slowly building to a wonderful climax, as fussed out guitars duel with pianos and softly strummed sitars. It's certainly a highlight of the EP, and the band's short-lived career in general. The closing track, titled The More from the Ministry, is one of the greatest tracks the Beatles never wrote. And this one in particular has the Fab Four stamped all over it. This could have easily come from the recording sessions for Sgt. Pepper's or Magical Mystery Tour.
I'm the mole from the ministry, and you'll all bow down to me.
And lyrically, The Mole from the Ministry is fascinating, with lyrics that seem unsettling and strange, speaking to feelings of paranoia and anxiety, in essence, exposing the bad side of the trip, the uneasy aftermath of the scene's psychedelic highs. And this is where the group exposes themselves as successors to the 60s style. Many of the bands that the Dukes modelled themselves on were rarely concerned with the darker side of psychedelia. But as a result, the Dukes rarely linger on it, and The More from the Ministry really has no equal in this regard amongst their brief catalogue. The 2-year gap between the 25 O'Clock EP and the album Sonic Sunspot was broken up by the release of XTC's Skylarking, whose lush pastoral pop gems have light shades of the psychedelia that ruled the Dukes. But, clearly, the band had more work to be done, and the 10-track full-length was released just a year after Skylarking. And, personally, I find the album to be just as colourful and as wonderful as its predecessor. Have You Seen Jackie is bolstered by this wonderfully immediate chorus that is nearly impossible not to sing or hum along to. And for me personally, I am reminded of the chorus of the Zombies' Care of Self 44. Little Lighthouse is this skittish, upbeat number driven forward by one of the album's most effortlessly catchy melodies.
She's a little lighthouse when she opens up her huge eyes.
You're a Good Man, Albert Brown is a raucous, rowdy, utterly infectious sing-along, moulded in the style of Bob Dylan's Rainy Day Women, without the unsubtle The album closes with the track Pale and Precious, which, like the conclusion of the 25 O'Clock EP, is a direct revival of another band's signature style, this time being the Beach Boys. However, like The More from the Ministry, the Dukes managed to impress their own twist onto that style to ensure the song goes further than merely being a well-meaning imitation. And Sonic Sunspot saw the end of the Dukes of Stratosphear. The band were, after all, intended as a side project from XTC, a fun diversion intended to blow off steam and pen the affectionate love letter to the psychedelia of the 60s that the band had always adored. Fittingly, a fictional departure was prepared for the band, the group being killed in a horrible sherbet accident, ensuring that they would be unable to continue their recording careers past the 1960s. But part of the unique appeal of this era is in its momentary presence, the feeling of being a brief, bright flash of musical revolution, passing, fleeting, but wholly wonderful whilst it lasted. And with this, I'd like to leave you with some final words on the Dukes of Stratosphear from Andrew Partridge once again. In the later 1970s, I found myself longing to be doing the music that I loved as a kid of 13 or 14. I'd be listening to the radio then, and there'd be stuff like See Emily Play or Strawberry Fields Forever, My White Bicycle. You know, all these great psychedelic singles, and I thought, this is wonderful. When I grow up, I'll be in a group and we'll make music like this. Of course, as a kid, I had no grasp that this was just the whim of fashion, and that this music was only going to last a year or so, and then it would be gone. But it affected me so profoundly that when I was in a position to be in a group and making records, I thought I should say thank you to the people who made these records, and to say thank you to them by sounding just like them. And I think Andy puts it a lot better than I can.